Thanks for joining us, everybody. Here for an exciting panel talking about from TradFi to DeFi. To kick it off, guys, I just want to go through brief backgrounds on you and then talk about what you're currently working on.
Yeah, my name is Dan Gunsberg. I have been largely in proprietary derivatives trading for almost 30 years. And I've been in crypto since 2015. 2018 founded the original genesis of Hxro. 2021 founded Hxro Network, which provides liquidity and risk infrastructure for derivatives trading and betting, all possible on Solana.
I'm Greg Scanlon. I come from Franklin Templeton. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what is Franklin Templeton doing here? I come from a background also in trading, so 15 years, long, short, equity, hedge funds, a mix of fundamental and quantitative analyst. And so normally I don't get to go into this special part of my history because not many people at Consensus or otherwise particularly care, but the reason that I dove into the rabbit hole of blockchain is because of Solana. And so when Solana came out, the throughput that Tolly was asserting in the block times of 400 milliseconds, having a basic understanding of payment systems and otherwise, it blew my mind. And so I started running a validator on Solana. As many of us in this room know, back in 2020, 21, running a validator on Solana was an adventure in and of itself. And so in order to maintain that validator, I got sucked down a rabbit hole of machine learning models, of maintenance, on-chain data, hacking and cracking, and a really in-depth understanding of the Solana architecture as well as the code that backs it up. And so from there, I had, unbeknownst to me at the time, really a world-class introduction and education into what is blockchain, what is distributed ledger technology. And so I joined Franklin Templeton about 2 years ago to co-manage the venture capital fund. We focus on early stage blockchain investments. We invest in both equity and tokens. And so again, I'm sure a lot of you are still thinking, what is Franklin Templeton doing here? But we do have a venture capital fund focused on blockchain, and we'll get into a little more of what else Franklin Templeton is doing in a few.
Sounds good. So the next thing that I want to dive into here is the whole purpose of this is from TradFi to DeFi. And there's particular things that definitely caught your eye about crypto ecosystems generally, and specifically of Solana, that has transitioned you over from that world into this world. So can you guys specifically talk about some of the things that really caught your eye earlier in 2019, 2020, that brought you into crypto and eventually brought you to the Solana ecosystem specifically?
What brought me into crypto was kind of twofold. One, being a trader at the time when I first got into it, which was late 2015. Brexit was a thing, and the Bitcoin narrative kind of caught my eye initially. And Bitcoin at the time was really trading like sub $200, and I thought there was a lot of good optionality as a trader, and took a punt on it, and it sent me way down the rabbit hole, and I never came out. So that was first. But as far as Solana, because we had been in the market for a couple of years with this original genesis of Hxro, and what really caught my eye was the creation of Serum, and the fact that you could run an on-chain central limit order book on Solana was fascinating to me. And when we originally got into crypto, we were looking to build on-chain infrastructure for derivatives trading, and it just wasn't possible on any other chain. And seeing what came out of Serum really kind of gave us the signal to go ahead and start building. And we went down and started diving into Solana right away, and here we are today. So.
But before I move over to Greg, I want to specifically hammer in on that point. So you talk about Serum, which is a fully on-chain order book. What about your experience in TradFi led you to find this so novel? What was it about Serum that was especially special to you that drew you in?
I mean, just the mere fact that you could port orders in and out of a central limit order book that was on chain was remarkable to me.
Yep.
And obviously that was a testament to the, even Solana when it was still pretty raw at the time. The fact that the throughput was real,
Yep.
and the low cost structure was real. And these are things that when you're trying to form markets, you do need traders in there that are mostly automated, and when you're providing liquidity or when you're taking liquidity, you do need to have that speed. And we're very realistic about the fact that over time things would improve, speeds would improve, and now we're kind of I think we're getting into the next chapter of that on chain. But all the base and all the foundations were there.
Yeah.
And coming from a place where we were in markets where there was a real race to zero, and trading was no longer being done in like microseconds; it was starting to be done in picoseconds. And this was a new advent. And if you kind of take this and then look at the kind of the more philosophical elements of disintermediation and inclusion and all the benefits that come from working on chain and in a more decentralized environment, the whole thing made a lot of sense to us, and we jumped in with both feet from there.
Cool. And Greg, how about you?
Again, I go back to as well the throughput. I know it's an easy answer, and it's only part of my answer, but we shouldn't take it for granted, right? The leap step that Solana made in terms of transactions per second, and I know that the new focus is also on seconds per transaction for payments, which is important. But being able to have a decentralized data distribution object and or strategy, as well as a consensus mechanism that can rival payment chains, is unbelievable. And so what initially sucked me in was I can run a piece of software with a hardware backend, and I can actually earn fees off of this. I had never participated in anything like that before, where you could imagine yourself being a part of something that scales to be, in competition with the likes of Visa, who is walking these halls today, representing themselves here. And so that was particularly appealing. From the trading side, again, going back to Serum, Radium, the math behind AMMs was super interesting to me in terms of working to understand, can AMMs be as efficient as market makers that we have today and algorithmic trading that we have today? And I think, at least for myself, that's still kind of a question out there that we are working through. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it there, actually.
Sounds good. So I want to kick it right back to you, Greg, because you touched on this a little bit at the beginning and during the intro. But first, I'm sure not everybody here in the audience knows who Franklin Templeton is. So maybe first you could give a little more context about Franklin Templeton, and then also just tell them generally, like, what are you doing here? What are you interested in?
I appreciate that. So Franklin Templeton is one of the few trillion-dollar asset managers on Earth. And so I'm just kind of curious if you all will humor me. By a show of hands, who actually knew that Franklin Templeton was participating and even building in the blockchain space here today? Okay. So we've maybe got like 5 to 10% of the audience. And so Franklin Templeton has a digital asset unit. That digital asset unit has existed since 2018. It started with a digital infrastructure team that has built a piece of infrastructure that put the first money market fund on chain. And so if you look for a tokenized money market fund called Benji, it is on multiple chains. It is working its way towards Solana in the next few months. But so it is the only money market fund on chain that does not run a dual process, meaning that there is no traditional finance rails being run for Franklin Templeton's on-chain money market fund. And that's incredibly important before I go on and do shameless plugs of what else Franklin Templeton is doing. Because I think a part of what we're seeing, particularly just in the last 3 months, which is super important, is TradFi actually swapping out their back-end rails for blockchain rails. So whether you look at Franklin Templeton, or you look at some of the big banks, or you look at some of the broker-dealers, transfer agents, or exchanges, we are seeing TradFi actually move their back-end rails to blockchain. Now, there's a caveat to it, because only certain TradFi players are looking to leverage public blockchains, like Franklin Templeton. Others are looking to leverage private blockchains that are kind of a continuation of their silo. And so, I'm happy to dive more into that. But Franklin Templeton, again, on-chain money market fund, digital asset infrastructure, you'll see more funds out of us in the future. We have a venture capital fund focused on investing in the ecosystem so that we can help grow it. We have an engineering team that works to support not only portfolio investments, but work with L1s, L2s in order to facilitate the growth of our funds. We have a team that focuses on tokenization and token economics specifically as an investment strategy, so more towards the quant specific. And then we also have a team that runs nodes as a service. It's not entirely public, but we largely take data off of nodes to understand what's going on chain.
Awesome. So keeping with the line of DeFi, Gunny, a lot has been built with Hxro over the last 3 years. Yeah. You and I met pre-bull market in 2020, talking about bringing your application over to Solana.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what that journey has been like and where Hxro is today.
It's been incredible, and like at any journey of any project in crypto, it has its ups and downs, and we've been through, since we started. This is our third bear market that we've been through and about to come out of the other end. I don't think we agree.
All right, knock on wood over there.
Right. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. Really, especially when in 2021 we kicked off building on Solana. We had the privilege actually of being in the Solana Labs office in Chicago, which was relatively new at the time, and not only our project, but just the energy that was there, and it was kind of the advent of the Solana NFT world, and with Bartosz and Jordan and them and the teams that were building there. The founder of Noah Prince was there also, who was the CTO of Helium, not Helios, and Jerry Zhao, who was is a Solana engineer, now runs Ellipsis, was one of the co-writers of Dexterity, which is Hxro's protocol for derivatives. It's been an incredible journey, and the fact that when we started, it still was very raw. There was not a lot of tooling. Anchor was kind of a new thing at the time, even, and there was definitely some growing pains early of getting engineers that were proficient in Rust, and then also become proficient in Solana, and now we have I think some of the best engineers in the space working on Hxro. But we pushed down 2 verticals, really because we weren't sure which one was going to work out. But one heavily down the derivative space, which is where my background was. But then we always had this thought that there would be this intersection of gaming and trading somehow, which is how the original genesis of Hxro started back in at the end of 2018 into early 2019. And so this parimutuel protocol that we had built off-chain was one of the first things that we built on-chain on Solana as well. And
Gunny, sorry to cut you off, but right there on the parimutuel protocol, I think that one of the key things that the audience could know is the struggles that you were having building that on EVM and why you started to consider Solana in the first place.
Yeah, it just was unusable in EVM. Like the settlement time, like whether it's trading or betting, you need near immediate settlement. It's so critical. And the settlement times, the costs, the variability of the costs was too crazy. It was just undoable in EVM. Even with L2s and stuff, it just made no sense. And so Solana was always the answer for us. But push down both paths, and then cut to today with Hxro Network, 26 different teams now building on top of it. A handful that are focused on building DEXs or UIs or various ways of utilizing different forms of derivatives that were created on Dexterity on Hxro's protocol. But then also we've taken this kind of other unique path into the iGaming space with this parimutuel protocol. There's a team that is fully dedicated. They're actually just about to receive their Isle of Man gaming license, and they, for the last year, have been going into really the Web2 gaming operator space and aggregator space, which is a whole interesting, gigantic world. And you can go, when you go to those conferences, by the way, in a bear market or in a just like when you're kind of like globally in a global bear market, there's never a bear market in gaming. I can guarantee you that. And they have been able to plant a flag there. They're in the next, between now and the end of the year, there's a couple of new big operators that are coming online to start carrying these kind of widgets that will go into these operator platforms. And all of this stuff, whether it's from iGaming or in derivatives, is all feeding down into Hxro Network. And it's just been exciting to see it come to life. And now we're getting at that phase where these teams are starting to get more involved. They're doing more work and we have an amazing DevRel who's done a great job with our grants program. And it's amazing to see it grow. And look, when we started, this was all about getting to a point where it outgrew the core team. And I think we're starting to see the early stages of that. And now we're doing things with the token market and the network itself to really expand on that and kind of set a path towards full decentralization of it, hopefully within the not too distant future.
Great. Greg, you mentioned Benji token. I think that with the rise in rates, a lot of people have learned what money market funds are in the last 12 months. Can you talk specifically to the novelty of tokenizing a money market fund and the current inefficiencies that we have in depositing cash into a money market fund and needing to withdraw for liquidity? And what does Benji token enable for DeFi and for potentially payments?
Yep. So, well, first of all, on the TradFi side, so for Franklin Templeton, what tokenizing a money market fund or any fund does for us is it eliminates intermediaries. And so essentially what the digital infrastructure is a transfer agent on chain. And so transfer agents are companies like Broadridge that exist within the traditional markets today. And we've essentially replaced them with a smart contract code and some good policy around that smart contract code. So barriers, well, and then in terms of cost efficiencies, although Franklin Templeton has never put this out there, you can see it from other banking institutions, but at scale, on-chain infrastructure costs at greatest 1/20th of what it costs to run the existing TradFi infrastructure. So the cost savings are immense. And when you look at that through the lens of a $1 trillion asset manager with basically institutional clients from all around the world, it matters at the end of the day. It's a significant savings. And so in terms of barriers for participation, you will not see Franklin Templeton front run the SEC. And so we still go through the KYC AML process. You need an individual or an entity that can go through that process. There are still barriers to entering that framework with Franklin Templeton. You essentially have to enter into a siloed Franklin Templeton walled garden to get hold of that money market fund, and then it exists on chain. Longer term, And I don't think that this is 5 years out. I would say that this is something that's more 2 years out. I think that what is in the minds of everyone within TradFi is, what if you can upgrade the entire fiat system? What if we can all walk around with yielding assets in our pockets that are frictionless, just like fiat, instead of holding cash, right, that depreciates over time? There are barriers to that, and so again, I go back to, you're not going to see Franklin Templeton front run the SEC. It's just the nature of the beast. It's why I am sitting next to Hxro and why Hxro will be successful, simply because of the management decisions that go on at these existing institutions. But that is a part of the long-term goal.
And specifically, I just want to like double click on that last point where Benji can be this yield bearing asset that can be used in place of cash theoretically in the future. Obviously, you have all the regulatory barriers. You got to move slowly in those environments. But talk a little bit about how useful that can be in comparison to the existing system.
Yeah, so I think for institutions and for retail, anybody who wants to maximize their earnings, holding something that yields is always going to be better than holding something that doesn't. Friction has been the main reason, right, that we all choose cash and not anything else. From Franklin Templeton's perspective, I think the other thing is distribution. And so blockchain being a digital platform where all you really need is a cell phone or a computer and connection to an internet, you can now interface with Franklin Templeton, and you have instant settlement. And so we've seen the success and the proliferation of stablecoins. We think that money market funds are the next wave of that level of success. And so there are still regulatory hurdles to that. But I do think that, I think there are some people, there's a contingency of people out there, I certainly interface with some of them from the venture capital side, that believe that the barter system is a better one than the fiat system. I do think that blockchain can get you pretty close to that, right? I mean, in terms of if you can have fractionalized digital representations of any kind of asset that you want that have instant settlement, you have gotten around the fact that, a loaf of bread, once you slice it, maybe it decreases in value, et cetera, et cetera. And so to that extent, the two key things for us that we think about internally are yielding assets are better, whether it's a money market fund today or, we all see where yields are probably destined to go, regardless of what your geopolitical views on the US's GDP and debt situation are. But the medium-term thought at Franklin Templeton is, let's get more funds on chain. And so again, going back to that barter system, it's a money market fund today. Maybe we transact with a money market fund. It could be any kind of fund in the future, depending on what you're willing to give up. Maybe there's an intermediary in the middle with super cheap spreads that flip it into whatever your recipient wants to receive. And so overall, you're looking at a more dynamic, flexible, and faster payment system.
One thing that he said that really stuck out to me is distribution. And I think builders in DeFi, especially if you've been here for a long time, we all agree it is really hard to get users. And it's a very limited audience. And especially if you're not EVM centric, like Solana has been obviously growing, but getting users at scale is something that I think everybody thinks about. And one of the most exciting things for me to see huge companies like Franklin Templeton come in, what business other than traditional finance has solved user onboarding better?
Yeah. I mean, think about the proliferation of a product like Benji.
Yes.
Suddenly getting millions of users across the country and across the world utilizing yield-bearing payments or utilizing yield-bearing financial applications.
Sounds incredible.
Exactly. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Gunny, I want to get back to Hxro really quick. Maybe give the audience a little bit of what's coming with Hxro and what's exciting for you.
Sure. Few new dexes that are launching throughout the end of the year. There's a lot of interesting things going on. Like, really, we've been at the forefront leading kind of Solana DeFi 2.0 around token mechanisms within networks. I'm a part of a new project called Armada that recently launched. That's doing token launches and providing tooling for all things token for a network. And
can you give a little insight to the audience on like where the inefficiencies are right now in the Solana ecosystem when it comes to bootstrapping new tokens or launching new tokens, and why you came up with the idea around?
Yeah, sure. They're just, we had a few projects that are building on top of Hxro that were looking to launch tokens for their own, for kind of their own sub ecosystems, and we noticed very simply there was a huge white space for tooling there. And if you think about the original advent of Solana, which was kind of a negative at the time, was the low float, high FTV tokens, and the blank person will not be named coins that they were calling them. And we've moved past that era now, and we're on to a new chapter. And part of leading that new chapter is having tooling there to make it easy for any project within the ecosystem to kind of launch tokens, and then not only to launch, but then to manage liquidity and the things that Armada are doing. It's very exciting, and so a lot going on there. And then for Hxro, it's just there's a ton of building right now. There's some new dexes launching, as I mentioned, throughout the end of the year and then into next year. And then on the other side of that equation, you're going to see a ton in the iGaming space, and it's really in both sides kind of leading that convergence of like Web 2, traditional gaming on that side, to Web 3 with Hxro networks. So.
Great. Greg, one of the things that I know a ton of people in the ecosystem are interested to hear from is from people like yourselves that are allocating capital to this ecosystem. So can you give the audience a little bit of an idea of what you guys are interested in right now, where are you allocating capital, and what is particularly of interest in that?
Yeah, I think medium term for the ecosystem, I think tokenization of real world assets, the continuation of that is super positive to the extent that we can continue to bridge that gap, and users don't realize on the back end, whether they're buying a fund or gold or a piece of art or shoes, whatever it may be, that the back end is blockchain and that there are these new features and capabilities that are possible. And so we're still super focused on tokenization, identity as it relates to mapping that to real world assets. Longer term, I think zero knowledge proofs, as we've seen Solana adopt. I was just watching the secret transactions, which I think is incredible, right? Like, that's a potential game changer for TradFi overall, because that level of privacy is required.
And specifically, I mean, a lot of people are definitely scarred around like the Tornado Cash situation and how that relates to privacy. And one of the reasons the Solana Labs team architected confidential transactions the way that they are is to allow privacy with the option for regulatory compliance with like assigning an auditor account. So maybe explain why that's important for.
Well, so, and just emblematically, I think that the fact that Solana is designing for privacy in a regulated environment is incredible, right? I don't think that we've ever seen before the merging of the TradFi world, where the TradFi world is all about regulatory, right? And it's made kind of a big push to hold off crypto. And now all of a sudden we have this flip where TradFi is adopting blockchain and distributed ledger rails. And at the same time, we're seeing crypto native and blockchain adopt regulatory and compliance, because I think ultimately we're all a little scarred by FTX, and some other things that have gone on, and understanding that transparency is required, because in the TradFi world, you're never going to be able to get away from KYC AML. Regulatory will always be there. To the extent that sovereigns exist, you will have KYC AML. I think, at least for myself, my view is that the optimal outcome is a universal or somewhat universal, maybe a few decided upon protocols of underlying KYC AML processes, so that TradFi does not attempt to take KYC AML and their positions in the regulated environment and use it as a tax upon blockchain users and marginal users that are coming into the system. But again, the timing and the movement of both sides, both TradFi, DeFi, crypto native, coming together, understanding each other, the value proposition from each side, I think is unbelievable. And so I agree fully. We are coming out of this bear market. I think the Bitcoin ETFs, we're already seeing movement off of it, right? I think that's just the first catalyst of a few that come over the next 12 to 18 months.
Cool. With the last minute here, I just want to give you guys an opportunity to tell the audience where they can get in touch with you guys, where they can reach you, socials or otherwise.
Yeah, Twitter, I'm HXROBTC. Telegram, I'm Gunny HXRO. You could, on Twitter, also go to Hxro Network, HXRO Network. Probably the best places to follow. And then Hxro.com, which also links into Hxro.finance.
Twitter and Telegram, I'm GG Scanlon. So feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks, Ben.